Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, it's the Goldfish Plant. Well, made into a bonsai, but of course. A few years back, I bumped into a plant that I just thought was really cool. It had leaves that looked like a succulent plant, kind of like the portulacarias, just not as round, a little more pointy, but real thick and puffy and shiny, and I just thought it was really cool. And it was a plant, and I had noticed the trunk looked like it could become woody. So we talk a lot in bonsai about species that are just a little bit odd and kind of out there and strange, and people always ask when we do a Minnesota Bonsai Society workshop, they almost inevitably ask in the curriculum when we're talking about bonsai, the introduction of, at the workshop, hands-on, well yeah, what trees can be bonsai? Or what can become a bonsai? And it really can be anything out there that can have what looks to be a woody trunk to make it look like a tree. Now, not everybody agrees with all of that. Not everybody's going to make a bonsai out of a goldfish plant. But some of us, myself included, really like to experiment and just have a lot of fun. Now, this started as a fun project, and I really liked the first result when it bloomed for the first time because it really looked like a miniature orange tree. Like I had a tree with oranges on it from a distance, of course. Let's go back to the first time I worked on these plants a couple of years ago. Let's get a sneak peek of where these got started.
Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's show, a two-pronged approach. I got that camera, and my son was nice enough to lend me his chest mount and GoPro. I want you to see more what I see when I work on my trees. And I figured the GoPro could get a nice close-in shot and kind of peeking at what I'm peeking at. I kind of like to think a little outside of the bonsai box and try new things. And when you talk to people who are new to bonsai, we often say, you know, the bare essentials of a bonsai is a tree and a pot. And people ask, what tree? Well, it really can be any tree. I have a 9-bark, which is more of a bush or a shrub. We have all kinds of different plant material that we turn into bonsai. Typically we want smaller condensed leaves, so it looks more to scale. We want a really woody looking trunk, so it looks like a tree. So I got this plant about a year ago just because I loved the orange flowers. I picked this up, I believe, at Bachman's. And there were these little orange flowers on here, and I thought it was just really cool. And it has kind of like that jade leaf structure to it. They're very shiny. When they're new, they're nice and small, and hopefully if I turn this into a bonsai tree, quote unquote, I can have the leaves get smaller and smaller as we put it into a pot and condense things. I'm just going to give it a try because I love to experiment. And I would get rid of this guy staring us right in the face. I've got this nice branch growing up this way. I got this branch curling up real nice over here. We got some movement. It's a right to left slant. All right. Oh, a little dusty at the end of that one. That's all. All right.
But what I did notice last year is that it's just a very woody trunk on this plant. And I thought if I separated them and put them into pots, you know, let's just see what happens. And so, look at this. Brought them into the cold frame and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blooms. Yeah, and it's orange. What a great time of year to bring them in a couple of weeks before Halloween, have them in a couple of pots and put them on the old table or the mantle for some decorations during the Halloween season. Kind of cool. And some scar marks there. Now this is a scar mark because a branch used to be here. And the downfall that this plant does have is that if you let it grow too long in any one area, we always talk about having multiple branches from any spot will make a bulge. This one had just some natural bulging where any branch grew. There are 2 branches growing right here now, right next to each other. If I go around, you can't really see it anymore, so we'll keep spinning it back around. But right here, we've got this branch right here and this one right next to it. So this would bulge at some point. It already has kind of a bulge there now. So we want to get rid of that before any more bulging occurs. And we'll see if this stays the leader or if we cut it off back here and this becomes the new leader, and we maybe make this at an angle and we see how the growth happens. Tree number 2. Let's give it a spin around for you. I mentioned moments ago about the other tree and working on these trees, or these house plants, if we're going to be super specific here. So this one was relatively easier. Seems like the decisions were flowing. Maybe it's because it's the third tree. So now we have a funny little tree right there.
So if left alone, kind of like a holiday cactus, your Christmas cactuses, your Thanksgiving cactus, if you just let them kind of grow out like the house plant that they are, they grow out and dangle and hang over. But when I trimmed these up, they look like really tiny little trees. And of course, they're less than 8 inches, so they're a great Shohin size tree. And I've got some fun little pots that I've received as a gift over the years. And it looks really kind of nice with this dark blue, and when you get the really gold orange flowers on here. Now these have not bloomed since I put them into the plant room, probably because I have them closest to that north facing window, and I don't know if they're really appreciating the draft over there, and it's probably not as warm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these up a little bit. We're going to put this one into a new prettier pot because this is just a plastic pot here. This one we're just going to trim up just a little bit, and then we're going to put them over where there's a little bit more warmth and a little bit more light and see if I can get some goldfish blooms. Now these are native to Brazil. We've got southern Mexico area and then Costa Rica, and the flowers can be red or orange or yellow, and this particular variety is orange. And I wanted to do this tree first because we're not going to repot it. And I want you to look real closely at this part right here. Well, let me put both trees back up here again for a second. If you take a look at this tree, we have one of the no-nos in bonsai right here. And that is reverse taper because of a bulge, because of where this tree wanted to grow and where the limbs were cut off. And so we get a little bit of a bulge here. So on this tree, which is my original tree, and I put it in this pot, well, both of these I think have been around the longest, but this right here is a cut right here. And if you can see this cut right here, we have what is the attempts at trying to heal over just like one of our trees. And so it's doing a nice job here of kind of healing over it, and I wonder if in another 3, 4, 5 years if that will disappear. But what's nice about that tree, when you look on it right this direction, the bulge isn't nearly as bad as the bulge on this tree right there towards the bottom. So I am going to cut a little bit of this one just to see if I can trim off that bulge a little bit and see if it'll heal more straight in time. Now these aren't prized bonsai, these are not made to be bonsai, so you know, if it doesn't look completely 100% good in a couple of years, I'll have learned from that effort. So always trying. Let's get this first one going right here. Once again, there's really plump leaves on this. It's a really nice, dark, rich colored leaf. Very, very nice. I see one leaf right here that has a bit of damage right here. Look at that. It just fell right off. See, look at something got to that. I hope it's not a bug. Let's get the glasses off and take a close look up here. See if we have any critters that want to eat this. So I've noticed on the trees when I cut them, they're kind of, I don't know that they're back budding. They might be a little bit, but they've not back budded down here for a long time here. So I don't know if this is going to be a good candidate for a bonsai for a big tree, because I don't know that they'll back bud on older wood. But it always pushes out multiple shoots from a similar area, which is why we get the bulge. So an important thing to remember when you're trying a new species like this, or a species you're not as familiar with, if you pay attention to the growth patterns as early on as possible, you'll know that you're going to have to keep up on some of your pruning. So if you get a tropical type plant like this where I can prune it in the middle of winter and it's going to be fine because it's in my plant room with more heat and humidity and light because of all my artificial, when you start seeing multi branches growing from a spot, you know, this looks like a nice fun thick little tree, but I've got 2 or 3 branches growing from this spot here. That's going to create that bulge look that we don't want. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can thin this guy out a little bit. So it has a decent little split there. This is kind of like a primary branch, if you will, if you bent it down like this. And this is just thickening up really, really big here. So when I cut this one right here, when I cut this down to size and cut the tip off right here, now it might push a little bit more growth down here by the base. We might get a second branch down there. So we're going to go ahead and cut that one and thin it out a little bit. Back over on this side of the tree now, if you can see here, let's make this so we can see. We have one branch growing down here. There it is right there. I separated it. There's a branch growing out this way. It's kind of the leader. And there's one leaf right here that could become another branch, which would be 3 branches in one area. So we don't want that bulge. We don't want that to happen. So I'm taking that little leaf off to make sure that we split into 2. And so here we go. If we can split this out for you. My chopstick on one, my hand on the other. Very delicate planter. I don't want to break it. But that is your split into 2 right there. Really nice. There's also one really tiny leaf right in here that's trying to grow again from this same spot. So let me get my scissors in there right here and just take out that little itty bitty leaf. Now that probably went to create some damage for a while, but why have 3 where we only want 2? And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut off this tip right there at the tip. And this one I'm just going to leave alone. So that branch is growing out. Now I noticed some dieback right here, so that branch didn't make it. But that's okay because let's look at this section right here. Oh, there's 2 diebacks. Look at that. But if we cut this dieback off and this dieback off, we have 1, 2, and 3 still growing in that area. So this is where we just don't even have to make the decision. It's made for us. That comes off, and that comes off, and they're already dead, so I can cut them down as close as possible. Now what's nice is I have a choice. 1, 2, and 3. I can keep all of them for now, but again, that would lead to a bulge. So what do I want to do? And it is pretty thick down in there. If I lift up the leaves here, if you can see right there, that bottom part where the leaf comes out there, that branch, that section right here below my pinky here, that's pretty bulgy already, right? So we just have to be careful with that. And I'm actually going to have to maybe get one of my smaller concave cutters, and I probably should trim this up back here so it doesn't get bulgy. Yeah, that's a little bit cleaner. But now we still have 3 branches. So what branches do I want to keep? So we trimmed this one down to 4 leaves. I could go down to 2 and leave it maybe there. This one's growing more inside of this back one, but it's growing more up. So let us go ahead and cut the older branch off right there. And let's cut this one down to size right there. Let's go to 4 leaves again instead of 6. Like I wanted the one in the middle. And there we go. That branch now is tidied up. So now these 2 are kind of close together, but one will go out this way and one might go up. We'll see if that's a good division in the future. Now if I really want to make this a more compact tree here, I probably could cut it off right here and just let this grow. And those are actually pretty big leaves right now. So if I cut it back here, maybe we get some more back budding down below. But we're going to leave that size at the moment. I will cut off this really big inside branch so it doesn't compete with the other side. So now we just have 3 leaves here. We have 4 here with a new set of buds coming out right there. So as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and cut this inside leaf off right there and this big one off here to promote this little tiny leader right there. And then it just thins out the tree a little bit more. And again, like any other tree, any other plant, the more light that's going to get in there, you're going to have much better back growing, back budding, and then just more growth throughout the tree. So I see an old wannabe branch that died off. Oop, I just bumped a leaf that wasn't doing so good. So now the main trunk of this tree kind of comes up here, and we've got this right here. Here's another cut point with some decent healing going on right now. Right there's a decent set of swelling right there to heal, but it is giving it a little bit more of that kind of a bump feel. So we know we want to cut these as true as possible when we cut this plant. I'm going to cut an itty bitty inside leaf right here. You can see it maybe right there as I cut it from this side. We cut that itty bitty, that's inside growth. I don't want that. This is where I need a little bit smaller scissors. I got to look for that little tiny scissors. Now at the very top of this plant, when you have something that wants to grow apically dominant, this is where all the growth is. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 leaders in here. In this little section, there are 6 of them. Well, there might be 7. There's one underneath there too. So they're gonna bud where the old branches were. Let's cut these inside ones out. I'm cutting a big one and a little one at the same time. Here's the massive trunk right here that I just cut off. There's the little growth right there. So look at that. We almost have a mini twin trunk bonsai right there for like a thimble. So there's new growth, right? That's 2 of the 6 that were there. There were 6 of them. We just cut 2 of them off. Now it opens up that tree a little bit more. Now this branch kind of grows up and in this way and kind of hides this one in the back. So I actually want to cut this one completely off in favor of that back branch. I like that. And now, to avoid some bulging, I want that super close right there. I'm actually going to trim. So what I'm going to experiment with here is I'm going to trim this bulge right here on the outside edge and see how that heals over time. I'm not going to cut the whole thing off, but I'm cutting this side very green. So there we go. Now that smooths up that curve, less bulgy. It's got some nice movement, and that'll let this tree maybe grow up, this branch right here in between these two for kind of a background branch. There's a stub back here I'm just going to cut. And now let's go to this back section right now. So here's the one I want to grow so you see it from this side. So these right here are not going to be needed long term, but here's the thing. We've got 2 branches trying to grow from there. So again, I'm going to cut the more mature one off. We'll leave that rest for dieback. And because here's another one going right in the crack again, right there in the armpit or the crack area of those 2 branches. And now I have 2 growing up, and I'm going to cut this inside leaf off right there. And there we go. So now from the front, once this leaf is gone or these grow up a little bit taller, we see what we want to do with this. This right here can grow up tall right here and get more of that canopy going. And now if you look around this area, there's a lot of little tiny movement. Really hard to see from your vantage point, but we're gonna clean all that up after these grow a little bit more. These are so small, and I just worry that they might have some damage. And speaking of damage, I think I bent this leaf too much, and it did that. Let's cut these 2 big leaves off right there. Made a decision for us. We're just gonna leave the 1 leaf on here. This will rebud back in here, and it might even shoot out another branch down below here because that's where they back bud. Should be good. So we cleaned most of this side up. Now we just have this back here. I see a leaf facing right towards me. I'm going to cut that off. I see an old attempt at some growth right here. That's kind of died off. So where do we want that branch to go? So we still have a couple left on this one, and then we're almost done. We have the big main branch off to your right, my left, this one going over to my right, and there's one going down here. Well, I like the one, and I like the new growth, so we have taper. Let's cut off the bigger, mature one that has all the energy. Again, right there, that was growing some more. That was split right up there. If I take this big leaf off here and take off some of these leaves, right there, there's a division. The growth to the right, your left, and the growth right here to my left, your right. So there's a division. It was dividing again. So it divides up really regularly from 1 to 2, but now we've just cleaned this tree up. It's really small, really dainty, and looks pretty slender right now with not much going on, but if I put it now in my plant room where there's more light and more warmth, I bet you this is going to have a good chance of producing some better growth. There we go. So tree number 1, the goldfish tree, already in a nice blue pot. It's even getting some little tiny aerial roots down here, so that'll be interesting in the future too if I get aerial roots. I didn't know this would have aerial roots in the least. Let's do one more trim right here with my concave cutter. Nice. And there's tree number 1. We'll put that over there in that warm area, and then we'll get to tree number 2 and repot it up. So tree number 2, we're going to actually get out of this pot, put it in a new pot, and I think we're going to put it in this really interesting blue-gray pot with the patina on here. It's round. I like the round, unique pot. We're going to put it in there and see how it looks in there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get some of the soil out of here. We'll give this one some fresh soil. Again, a house plant that has kind of a woody look to it if you trim it like more like a tree. More like a bush instead of a plant, right? These could be probably decent multi-trunk bonsai because of how fast and long and leggy they can grow, as you likely saw in the first part of this video from my first video of the goldfish plant a couple years back now. take a look at the playlist if you want to see the progression of the goldfish plants. And this, of course, will be the latest addition in there. So it's nice to see I have a lot of roots in this plant. What a nice site. So we've got some bigger ones. We've got a ton of finer feeder roots. So how fantastic is that? So let's get that there for us to see. And there we go. Take off my glasses because I can see so much better without them up close. And look at this root structure. Pretty fantastic. A couple of clumps in there. Well, these are going to have to separate a little bit. We're going to have to cut these back. So this is going to have to fit in here. So we're going to have to do some trimming here. So a lot of length to some of these roots. So we know we're not going to keep them all. So what a nice little root base. Getting this nice and root pruned right now and having it sit in my plant room for the rest of this winter is, I think, going to provide a really nice new healthy structure for this tree as it goes back outside next late spring, early summer for its time outside. So yeah, look at that. So what a nice decent little radial root pattern. I've got one large root that's going up. I'm going to cut that off. I don't want that one going way up, and actually that looks like it's two roots from two different spots that were formed together. Very interesting root structure there. So there we go. We have one thicker one down here. I don't mind that one. I'm going to cut it so it can grow some more feeder roots off of that. And this thicker one I'm cutting right now, I think I'm going to cut it back here. There we go. There we go. And I think that's it. I think that'll fit in our pot just fine and have room to grow. And if it ramifies and spreads out and does some good growing in here, it'll be fine in this pot for a good 2 more years. And again, my goal is not to have a great big tree. I don't know if this one will get great big. This will be a fun Shohin sized little tree. I've never potted this one up. This is brand new to me. It's got a Chinese stamp in the back, or a Japanese, or, you know, I don't know, maybe this is a Korean stamp. I can't tell, but there's a little stamp in the back there. 3 holes there, so we need some drainage screens. So let's see what I got, and let's get some new fresh soil and repot this orange goldfish plant. So I'm trying to get these a little bit more custom to the size I need. There we go. So we have 3 very little holes with the soil right in them. Now, I'm going to put just a little bit of a coarser base to hold these down. I'm not even going to wire them. I'm just going to hold them down. There we go. And those will hold in place. Again, the benefit of repotting in a plant room like this is there's going to be no wind. This is going to sit there real nice. So I didn't wire those down, and I'm just going to put this right here. So just ever so gently, a little bit of tamping in here. It was a pretty flat radial root down there, not a lot of curve to it or hollow in the bottom. We just need some of these rocks maybe to settle in there, some of these little itty bitty ones and the fines of here. This is my smallest bonsai mix, that is. And it does have a little feel of a little bit of topsy-turviness. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and water this down and then put a few rocks on here, and then we're going to be in a good position to maybe do some trimming. So let's get some water in here real quick. Get rid of that dust particles, water it very, very thoroughly. There we go. And that alone just is going to hold that tree in that pot a little bit more securely, because these rocks now do have kind of a nice heavier rock here that I can put that right there. And this one's kind of curved shape around a trunk too, right there. And that's just going to hold it in place a little bit better, give it some stability in the first few weeks as it is repotted here, getting ready for what's next for this tree as it grabs hold down there. So again, we're going to do some trimming now. So the backside of this tree, right by this rock where I placed it now, is the backside of that bump. I was going to trim some of that off. And I wonder if I should trim it before I put that rock there. I think I will. I think I'm going to give it just a little bit of a trim. Right there. And so if you can see from that angle now, we got rid of some of that bump right there. Now I don't want to go around the whole tree because it's doing a decent job of healing so far. Let's just do that much. Let's go one little stretch more right there. There we go. Okay, I'm going to put that protection rock back right there. And that's going to heal up a little bit nicer on that side. And if that works really well, we can trim this other side later. So then we have this splitting into two up top here. Let's get this big down-facing leaf off of there right now. 3 branches now growing from that point. We've got this main trunk here, or branch I should say, but then there's also this branch way in the back here. So that again is three branches from one area. Here's the long leggy one, here and here, and those have better movement. Now this one is coming out, this was probably the last to grow. I don't like its position. I'm going to take that one right out. Now it's back down to these 2 main ones. And if you look real carefully within this main one, as it jets off to the back, it splits into 3 again. Here is the newer growth right here. It splits into 3. Makes a nice little movement back that way if we want it. This is a tough call because if that is the front of the tree, we look at this, we don't see the back as much, and this is kind of blocks our view a little bit. So maybe we want something lower back down over here. I am going to cut the tip of this off right now towards a down-facing one. Let's cut off this top one. I think this back left one here is kind of being hidden away. So let's go ahead and cut off that one and leave those 2. And then if we cut off this one right here down to 4 leaves, we'll see how that one splits. So now the front of the tree, so I like the structure of that one, and maybe that could be the front of the tree someday. This angle with this as the front, but that's kind of poking us a little bit. But now we have this branch right here. I'm going to cut this inside leaf off right here, just right now to let me see what's going on better. I'm going to cut this big leaf that's going inside off right there. Let's cut this one off so they're not competing. So there, those are all a bit cleaner. Let's go ahead and cut this one off right there now. So those 2 are super, down to 2 leaves, down to, this is actually 2.5 leaves. This will rebud back down here, probably bud back here, here, and here, and maybe even deeper down. We have a little bit of an area between these branches here that I can clean up just a little bit so it doesn't bulge. That's our hope anyway, that it won't bulge. There we go, it's a little bit cleaner there. But we're left with this front thing that splits into 2 right here. There's one in the back. And this part back here is actually dead. So let's cut this dead piece off right there. That was a little, oh, there was a little leaf on there, my bad. But we've got 3 leaves growing on this branch right there. Now until I do something with this cluster right here, I don't know what of that I'm going to keep. But let's just shorten this down to 2. And we'll see what this is going to do as this grows in its new really well lit place. So now the branches that are left, let's go ahead and cut down to the lower sections of those. Let's cut this one down here. Cut off an inside big branch for right now so I can see what I'm doing. Cut off this one because it's competing completely for this space over here. And then we'll cut this one down to 4 or 5 or 6 here just to see what we got left. So it looks like I have kind of a dead branch right there where these 2 split. I don't mind cutting that right off. As a matter of fact, let's make it a little bit deeper of a cut to avoid that potential bulge. And it'll probably shoot up a new shoot in there too. They have in the past. Now this one's going down. I don't know that I'm going to want that going down right there, so let's just cut that one off. Back here, this is shooting back towards the tree and making some challenges there. And let's cut off, let's see. Yeah, so these 2 compete against each other. right here and here. So if I get this leaf gone anyway, this is growing up and maybe the tree's going to grow up this way, or it'll just back bud more down there by these younger branches. Let's get this one going back towards it off. So here's a good look at that branch though, right? It's got 3 leaves, it's three branches though, run over here and 2 over here. So we're going to go ahead, actually I'm going to cut off, well, this one grows more inside right here. This one grows more straight up. So let's cut off the one that's kind of growing inside. We don't like that direction. Let's cut that one off. Now it just kind of sits like this out there. And these two are kind of on the same plane this way right here when you're looking at this way. But we could always turn the front of the tree this way. Of course, then this is in our way. Maybe this becomes the front then later. But we've got it trimmed down to a reasonable level now. Let's just cut this one going down, this super big one, because there's enough little leaves in there budding out. And I think perhaps that's all we can do on this little guy. So super young, super small, actually a couple of years in growing, a couple of years in training. And we've got some movement to this tree. Here's the main trunk, or it was the main trunk, but then we've made this one the main trunk. As this thickens up a little bit, these two will maybe be more of a match, and we have kind of that Y split. And sometimes in nature, those trees will Y split as well. So it's not like it's completely that rare, and we want just a straight tree with that first primary branch always in the same spot. So one of the things about bonsai, there are some people that go with the same old traditional looks all the time. You know, trees in nature may grow like this as well. I don't know about a goldfish plant as a bonsai, but that's why we're experimenting. So I see a little bit of a gray stub right here that's dead, and we can get that a little bit less bulgy right there. There, that's nice. And then this is going to be the hard one to clean up. Look at this really big kind of wide division here. We don't want a lot of bulging in there though, so we're going to try to get that a little bit thinner. And it has done a really good job of healing itself after these cuts in the past, so I'm not too worried about making some of these trim ups. Okay, I think it's that spot in the trim, the repot, the prune, that we just have to put our hands away and see what the new light's going to do and what it's going to provide. A fun little tree. So again, the goldfish flower, it hasn't bloomed for a while. I've got those pictures from the past. I can pop one of those up again real quick here for you. A goldfish plant turned into a tree. We'll leave it in this pot, and when it blooms orange, we'll see what we think. The pot color is not as vibrant as the dark blue. It's not quite as nice, but I love the patina on it. It's a matted kind of finish on it, and that flower will pop. These green leaves kind of pop. We'll just go with it for right now. Fun, very, very fun. Just a quick little tropical houseplant episode for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you on the next one.